The battle for parents who are concerned about the sexual indoctrination of kids in schools is only heating up in the province of British Columbia. But what does that mean for the free speech of those who are trying to fight it? Next to me is Mr. Barry Neufeld, a former school trustee for the Chilliwack School District 33, who just lost a defamation case that begs the question. All right, we meet again. Mr. Neufeld, thanks for meeting me.
Yes, it seems like every time I open my mouth, a lawyer starts making money or a news reporter gets a story.
Well, you're right. It seems like when I'm covering it, but it's not what we want to be covering. In fact, we have a special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com to educate you and to let people know about some of the things that you advocate against. Now, in this case, I'm going to coin it, as others have, the Striptease artist defamation case. Let's show you one of your former colleagues on the screen. Her name is Dr. Karen Bondar. She sits as the vice chair for School District 33, calls herself a biologist with a twist, and perhaps this is why.
Then they procreate, and some genes we take, varied forms are derived. Yes, organisms still evolve. The experts have worked hard to solve the complex.
Come and join me, Dr. Karen Bondar, as I delve deep into my favorite topic, animal sex. Ever heard of the phrase "f*** like rabbits"? Spiked penises, golden showers, and a 15-meter-long member. I'd rather be stuck here in these pants with you than forced to die in a sea of ejaculate. I'd like to talk to you about group sex.
Dr. Bondar has won her lawsuit against you. It all stems back from 2022 during a power hour for Action for Canada, where you made a statement. What was that statement?
Well, I was just commenting that I was puzzled why in the previous by-election a few months earlier, Richard Prosey, a respected businessman, had lost to that striptease artist. I never mentioned her name. But in the court proceedings, everyone agreed that those watching the video would understand I was referring to my then colleague, Karen Bondar. Richard Prosey ran against that striptease artist in the by-election 4 years ago. We thought he was going to win, but something funny happened with the mail-in ballot.
Now, Justice Stevens from the Supreme Court has ruled that that statement was in fact defamatory. He says it was insulting, it was degrading, and also that you were using it as a way to come against your opponent. What do you make of that?
I didn't use it to come against her. I just was expressing my surprise that the formerly conservative community of Chilliwack would vote for a person who was such a libertine. The judge ruled that it was defamatory because in today's new standards of sexual behavior, that kind of thing is considered normal and run-of-the-mill. The other thing that bothered me about the judgment is the judge went on and on and on comparing case law about defamation, but the examples that were used and were presented in the report had nothing to do with sexualization of children. It was people suing each other for being liars and thieves and fraudsters and con men. It had nothing to do with children. The other thing that he neglected, he kept saying that nobody had shown him the wild sex videos that Karen Bondar has put out. Well, that's not true. We ran out of time, but I had submitted an affidavit with screenshots from her wild sex videos, and I can't see how she felt that she was defamed by me calling her a striptease artist. Those pictures she did in the affidavits are absolutely vulgar and disgusting. And so she's used to being controversial in this area.
But when it comes to the sexually explicit books that I know you've advocated to be out of schools, that are made acceptable by our sexual orientation gender identity program called SOGI 123, well, Dr. Bondar is an advocate for that program to the point that she said this about parents and other people who protest against that type of stuff.
The first issue is the sexualization. I would actually argue that these protesters are hell bent on sexualizing children because it is all they ever talk about. They're obsessed with genitals and sex and things they don't understand. Okay, so I don't remotely agree that this is a sexualizing curriculum or set of learning resources. Okay.
So, what do you make of Bondar claiming to be so harmed by your comment, but then saying parents who oppose things like SOGI 123 or sexualization in kids in schools, they're the ones who are obsessed with sexually indoctrinating kids?
I think that is extremely hypocritical statement. You know, when I was still on the board, this new woke board wanted to revise the dress codes, and they removed all restrictions. A teenage girl could go to school wearing a see-through teddy, and there's nothing the school could do about it because all restrictions have been removed. And when I protested that modesty should be the basis for dress codes in school, the chair of the board, Willow Richelt, said that she found the concept of modesty to be repugnant.
I believe that the dress codes in most of our schools currently contravene our safe schools policy because they discriminate on the basis of gender and socioeconomic factors as well as body type.
The judge said that when I characterized Karen Bondar's video as a striptease, he said I was wrong. And the reason was, in the video, she appeared scantily clad, and then there was a short clip where she was naked except for boots, and then she was back to being scantily clad. So she never actually took her clothes off, and that's why it was so derogatory that I called her a striptease artist.
So, right down to the technicality. Now, I also reached out to the lawyer that represented you. His name is Paul Jaffe. I wanted to know what his take was on what this means for free speech in the public sector.
I think this judgment has the potential to have a chilling effect on people who may be inclined to speak out on matters of controversy, but they can see what's happening to Barry Neufeld, whose comment regarding Dr. Bondar was relatively innocuous, infinitely less egregious than many of the defamatory imputations leveled at Neufeld over the years. But in this instance, you have a court system that seems to be increasingly siding with what we call the progressive or the woke side of the ideological debates on a number of topics. And we're not getting what we think and what we're used to in a court system and in a Western democracy, an objective, impartial, judicious view of the facts.
The other thing that's scary is that Canada is contemplating hate laws that are going to be very severe. And this ruling has come out prior to the hate laws and was intended to set a precedent to scare everybody to keep their mouth shut if they don't believe and they don't agree with the ruling classes.
But when you found out that you were going to have to pay or ordered to pay $45,000 because of this case, what was going through your head?
Well, my first reaction was that of I was stunned, I was shocked.
For those of you who don't know, you owe more money related to another defamation case. This one it worked against your favor. You brought it forth against Glenn Hansman, who was the former head of the BC Teachers Federation. And he basically made the claim, very public, that you were a threat to children while you were working as a school trustee. Now, ultimately, in the end, that case was lost due to the anti-SLAPP legislation. But what do you make of it being okay for Hansman to say that about you from such a high level, a high position, versus you not able to say this about Bondar?
Yes, well, I was accused of being a danger to children. However, in this particular case with Bondar, the judge, in his reasons for judgment, said absolutely nothing about the effect that this might have on children. My concern is that a school board, One of the most difficult decisions they have to make is when one of our employees misbehaves and harms a child. And we have to determine what the consequences will be. Karen Bondar has openly said, legalize everything. She has already made her position very clear that sexual freedom is what life is all about.
I did reach out to Miss Bondar to have her weigh into this interview. I have not heard back, but I want to end with letting the people know, do you plan to appeal this in any way? What's next? How are you going to pay that $45,000?
Well, you know, this was such an unfair decision. The judge just completely ignored a lot of the evidence that we put forward and some of my reasons why I thought this was of a concern to voters. So should I take a chance on the Court of Appeals? The court is obviously very biased in this direction, and it will depend on my supporters. If they think that I should appeal this, I will, and I hope to hear from them. I hope to get some feedback whether they think this is worthy of an appeal.
Well, there you have it. Barry Neufeld, once again in trouble for advocating for innocence in schools and speaking your mind. Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Thank you, Drea.
At Rebel News, we don't back down from bringing you the other side of the story, and that includes covering the important issue of sexual indoctrination being normalized in our schools. We have a special website where you can find many reports on this subject. It's called stopclassroomgrooming.com. And if you appreciate those reports, please consider chipping in a few dollars to help cover the many expenses involved in making them available for you.